Since the dawn of humanity, people have thought, observed, counted, measured, and calculated. Every new number has carried us one step forward. Around 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, a merchant lined up his beads on a wooden frame. He called it the abacus. He wasn't aware of it then, but he had just taken the first step toward computer hardware. Centuries passed, and this tool became widely used. Humans looked to the sky, measured, and calculated the positions of the stars. They made complex calculations for great buildings and architectural designs, but with every new calculation, things became more and more complicated. And finally, in the 1600s, the mechanical age began. Blaise Pascal built a machine that worked with gears. It could add and subtract. Leibniz improved it by adding multiplication and division. Between tiny metal gears, the idea of automatic computation was born. With Charles Babbage and his dream of the analytical engine, another great leap was made. He designed a massive system powered by steam, with memory, a processor, and a control unit, a true forerunner of today's computer. By his side was a woman, Ada Lovelace. With the algorithms she wrote for the machine, she became the first programmer in history. But Babbage's machine was never completed. Still, his ideas were far ahead of their time and inspired many who came after him. Years passed, and the world found itself in the midst of war. This war made speed and accuracy in computation as vital as weapons themselves. In 1946, the ENIAC was built. Covering 162 square meters, weighing 30 tons, and filled with massive vacuum tubes. It overheated, it broke down, but it could perform thousands of operations per second. For the first time, information could be processed, and even stored, albeit briefly. Its cost, $500,000 at the time, equivalent to about $6 million today, was staggering. The vacuum tubes at its core were large and fragile. They constantly failed, and their enormous power consumption drove up costs. Then in 1947, Bell Labs took the lead and invented a small miracle to replace those tubes: the transistor. A tiny piece of silicon replaced massive tubes, and costs plummeted. Mass production became possible. Thanks to transistors, computers became smaller, quieter, faster, and ready for large-scale production. Now a desk was enough, no need for a room. Machines like the IBM 1401 and PDP-1 captured the imagination of engineers. The computer had evolved from a giant beast into a practical tool. Then came another revolution: integrated circuits. At Texas Instruments, Jack Kilby patented the principle of integration and created the first prototype ICS. Hundreds of transistors were now combined on a single chip. A desktop could now rival a laboratory in power. In 1968, a now familiar company entered the stage. In 1971, it introduced the Intel 4004, the first microprocessor. Soon after, the Altair 800 found its way into homes. Then came Apple, Commodore, Atari, and computers were suddenly in everyone's living room. In 1981, IBM PC launched a new era, the age of the personal computer. Computers were no longer just for science. They were for playing games, writing, and listening to music. By the 1990s, every home and office had a computer. They were called PCS, personal computers, Pentium processors, Windows 95, CD-ROMs, modems. The world was becoming connected. Sound cards, graphics cards, hard drives. Each defined a new frontier in hardware. Computers quietly became part of our homes. With the new century, speed was no longer the only goal. Miniaturization, portability, and power efficiency took center stage. Notebooks, smartphones, tablets, each one a computer. They all became smaller and more accessible. Inside them lived billions of transistors, packed into chips smaller than a fingertip, competing with the scale of atoms themselves. SSDs were silent. GPUs no longer handled just graphics. They powered artificial intelligence. Today, computers aren't just on our desks. They're in our cars, watches, pockets, hospitals, and even in devices that monitor our heartbeat. What once began with a few beads evolved. Then gears turned, exploding tubes gave way to chips, and what once filled 162 square meters has now shrunk to nanometers. Now billions of transistors work invisibly, but behind all this change, one thing has never changed: human curiosity and the passion for calculation. Perhaps one day computers will truly learn to think, but even then their story will forever remain a creation of the human mind.